Today, Great.com talks with Elena Herr, who is Senior Development Officer at Smart Reading. If you haven't heard of them, they are a non-profit organisation on a mission to spark joy and opportunity through the magic of a shared book. If you are new here, please press subscribe on YouTube or on your podcast app, because today we learn the power that reading has on kids. Hello, Elena, and welcome to our podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Ryan. Excited to speak with you.
Thank you so much for being here, and I really look forward to this conversation and see where it goes. So, to start with, for me and anybody new here, what is Smart Reading and what do you do?
Smart Reading is all about getting kids excited about books and reading, helping them find out what they like to read, and making sure that they have tons of books to be reading outside of the classroom as well. So I'm a Senior Development Officer, which is a lovely way to say that I'm a fundraiser. So two things power our organization: the volunteers in the program, as well as the financial dollars that folks invest in children's futures.
Wow, that sounds incredible. So, just leading on from that then, why would you say what you do is so important?
I think for too many kids in our community, they just don't have books to call their own. They don't have a dedicated reading buddy to be spending time with them, to be talking to them about books, helping them understand what they like to read, really having that steady commitment of a community volunteer to spend time with the kiddo, ask them questions, help them gain both literacy development as well as reading comprehension as well. And so for just, if we work with pre-K to third grade students. And so if we can start off, a 4 or 5-year-old on the trajectory to reading success, their future just becomes so much more brighter than a child who doesn't have the reading skills needed by third grade. Third grade is really the time that we're really trying to ensure that all kids have a foundation in reading skills, because that's the pivot point, at least in America here, where children traditionally pivot from learning to read to using reading to learn other subjects. And so if a child is delayed with their reading skills, we know that they're going to be delayed in other subjects as well.
Yeah, that's so interesting, because I'm just thinking back to me when I was, say, a child, and I didn't really read books. However, now to this point now, over the last year or 18 months, I really enjoyed reading books myself, and I'm an avid reader. So I wish there was something like this maybe when I was a child to get me into reading. So is there any sort of obstacles or resistance at all for, say, children that are struggling to read or that don't really want to read, and how do you sort of help them get into the reading?
Yeah, absolutely. So all of us staff members get to be volunteers in the program. And so I've had exactly that. So each volunteer is typically paired with 2 kiddos to read half an hour with each student. And in 2019, I was paired with that kid that you kind of described, someone who really wasn't very interested in reading. We read first thing in the morning, and he would often tell me he was hungry as well. And so I figured out the school where we were working at or reading, I knew that the lunch ladies were so wonderful that if he went into the cafeteria kind of behind the scenes and told them that they would, provide him with a juice or a snack or something just to fill his tummy up. And I found that if he had a little bit of food in front of him, then I could read to him while he was having a snack or doing something else. He also had a terrible case of the wiggles, we call them, where he was very, very active and always running about and hard to kind of keep pinned down in a seat. But that's okay too. We really try to meet kids where they are. And so, if he wanted to stand next to me while I read to him, we found that worked really well. I also found that if he had a crayon or a marker and could draw some pictures while I was reading to him, that worked really well too. So, in a typical year, we have about 5,000 community volunteers doing the reading that I just described. And it's really child driven. So we ask the kiddos to go over to the bookcase and pick which books they'd like to read. We train our volunteers to ask do you want me to read to you, or do you want to read to me? Really, again, making sure that we're meeting the kiddos where we are and trying to find those creative solutions to bring reading into whatever format that they're comfortable with.
I mean, that's super interesting, like what you just said there, because it reminds me so much of myself, like about not being able to sit down and just focus on, say, reading a book. And it's so nice for you to say, like, you meet the kids where they are rather than, say, trying to force them or drag them towards you, because anything in life, I believe, that needs forcing isn't meant to be. So it's so wonderful to hear that as well. So going on from this then, since its founding, was it 1991 or 92? What have been, say, some of your greatest challenges, and how have you overcome them?
We continually hit a ceiling with the number of kiddos that were served based on volunteers in the community. So in a, pre-pandemic time, we ask our volunteers to commit to an hour every week of the school year to go to a school to sit side by side with the kiddos. We know how important it is for children to be developing a relationship with their adult volunteer to build their comfort and really their self-confidence. It's often months into the program year where the child will just all of a sudden turn the corner and read that book to you, which is truly magical. So that's kind of been one of our big ceiling points. And I think that one of the benefits, if there can be a benefit of the pandemic, is we've really launched our virtual programming models. So we are bringing kids together with volunteers in virtual formats, just like the two of us here today. We have another supervising volunteer in the digital space just to make sure that everything is okay. But we've also digitized a whole bunch of children's books. So in a Zoom platform like this, we'd have another screen that would be the book. So a kiddo, it's almost like a PowerPoint presentation slide where a child can flip through a couple of pages to find, and there's probably 10 books on every page for them to pick from, click on the book, and then you go and you have kind of your Kindle children's book just in this digital format. And so you can still kind of have the same, everybody's looking at the book together, we could be miles apart, or we could, be in kind of the same local community. But we really see great potential in the future of continuing with those virtual programming offerings. We also know that a child can really benefit by having their adult volunteer reflect their own background. And our traditionally, after being around for 30 years, the majority of our volunteers are retired white women. And we know that having younger folks or more people of color volunteering with us can only benefit the children in the program. So we're really excited with the idea to have, somebody who's a little bit younger in their career who can't leave their office, but they could do, an hour over their lunch break of reading time just like this. They don't have any transportation time to or from the school. So, their time commitment is lowered, but the benefits to have a child also reflecting the student that they're reading with is just huge. So we also have the potential, we're based in Oregon and we have about 280 programs across the state. And Portland is kind of our big metro area. So the idea that somebody in the Portland metro area could be reading with somebody all the way down on the Oregon coast or, another part of the state, there's just huge benefits there. And I wanted to just, what you said just a moment ago as well about being the kid that didn't love to read. I think I was also that kid that didn't love to read. And it wasn't until I found the books that I really liked to read. And even as, a little second grader, I realized historical fiction is still what I really, really love to read. And I had a wonderful librarian that introduced me to an author. And then that summer I read all of those books. And I think for kids in the SMART program, it can also help them identify what kinds of books do they like to read. Do they like to read nonfiction books about animals? Do they like to read fiction books about fairy tales, whatever it is that the kid likes to read, we make sure that we have tons of high interest, high quality books for kiddos to choose from.
Yeah, that's super important, I think, about the kids enjoying the reading process because I mean anything in life, if something needs forcing, it feels like a chore, and then we don't like to do it. And if it's not enjoyable, we don't like to do things either. So especially for kids growing up, if you try to make them do something that they don't really want to do, I feel like you can be fighting a losing battle. So yeah, it's so nice to hear that you're sort of tailoring the books to those individuals. And also about the whole COVID impact, it sounds great that you've managed to pivot to now say take a huge positive out of say a potential perceived negative. Because I'm guessing with the COVID situation that the volunteers couldn't actually go there to sit one on one, but now, like you say, you can do it over a Zoom call, for instance, through the power of technology, and you can have a huge, like even bigger impact. So yeah, it's so good to hear that. So leading on from what we just explained there, or just discussed there, what would you say then are the biggest needs of the individuals that you support, and how are you a part of the solution?
When I think about the kids that we're supporting, they really just need more books to pick out for themselves and keep. We have a lot of kids in the program. One kiddo that I read with a couple years ago, she was in kindergarten, a kindergarten student, but her older brother was also in the program when he was a younger student. And I just think about between the two of them, if each of them are taking 14 new books home each school year, just how big their home library has developed between the two of them and their younger siblings and having access to tons of books. And then I also just think about that dedicated one-on-one time of pairing a kiddo with the same volunteer throughout the year. It makes that child feel special that that person is showing up at the school weekly just to read with them. It makes reading special as well that, these volunteers care so much about reading that they, it kind of elevates reading itself. So those are kind of the biggest needs that I see for the kiddos that we serve.
And how many, say, children have you supported over the years?
Oh goodness, I'd have to look at our website to find that number. It's a big number now. So last school year we served 17,000 kids through a
Wow.
pandemic.
Wow.
That's just one school year. I know last year as well, we gave away our 3 millionth book. So there's a local bookstore here in town called Pals. It's huge. It takes up a whole city block. They have about 1 million books in their store. And so to think about, when we think about this huge pillar of our community and we've given away 3 times the amount of books in that one store is really phenomenal. And again, just to think about where those books go now. And after 30 years of reading with kiddos, we have alumni coming forward. And I mean, these are adults like you or me who are now professionals, but can really point back to SMART as being the start of I think about this one person in particular. He was a shy kid. He didn't have a ton of self-confidence. He lived in a rural area. And his reading buddy became his best friend. And he just talked about how much he looked forward to those Tuesday mornings and seeing his volunteer show up at the classroom door. That's the other thing about the program is the kids are so excited. The kids are so excited to leave the classroom, go spend some one-on-one time. They know that they're going to get some new books to keep. So the kid that I talked about, he joined the Army, served our country. He's now a CPA, very successful, and can point directly back to his SMART experience of not only giving him the strong foundation and literacy skills that he needs to take to college and beyond, but also just blossoming as a professional as well.
Yeah, that's super amazing to hear because I was going to ask you, say, some of the success stories about this program. So what I wanted to ask is about the say it's a one-on-one with the readers. Why would you then say that you focus on the one-on-one time rather than say in a group online, etc.?
Yeah, we really want to make it totally child driven and child centric. So, just by having the two of you together, that volunteer is so focused on helping that child pick out the book to keep, trying out a couple during the reading session to see what they like. We train our volunteers to ask comprehension questions that are going to help the child develop their reading comprehension skills, as well as far as, did you expect that was going to happen? Or halfway through the book, what do you think is going to happen? It really puts the child at the center, and really, I think it really also just elevates reading. That we think it's so important that they spend that one-on-one time together. It just elevates the experience all around. And I think too, for so many kiddos, I mean, I had a sibling growing up. I'm the youngest kiddo. I didn't always have that one-on-one time with somebody at home. And so to have that one-on-one time with a caring adult, I think is just so phenomenal.
Yeah, it's so nice as well, about the one-on-one time. And you said like that the reader asks the individual children some questions, for instance, like what do you think, or how's the story going to unfold, etc. So yeah, that I guess gets the children's minds going as well. And I guess there can be some very interesting conversations and ideas that sort of pop up in their heads as well. So going on from this then, what would you say your vision is for the future?
I think our vision is really clear. It's just where every child can read and be successful in whatever way whatever that means for them.
Wow, that's super powerful, short and sweet, and very powerful as well. So, yeah, it's so nice to hear that, because I think as well, like the more children that we can introduce to programs like this and get children reading from a young age, the impact that it's going to have, say, on these young children as they grow up, because the things they can learn and use potentially in an adult life as well, going into workplaces, etc., I think it's going to be phenomenal. So, for anybody, say, listening today, what can someone do to help, and what action steps can they take to be a part of the solution?
Absolutely. So as I mentioned at the top, two things really make our organization function. It's the folks volunteering their time and the folks investing their dollar in our children's futures. So they can go to smartreading.org and learn more about how to volunteer and also to make a financial gift.
Amazing. And if somebody wanted to, say, volunteer, what would that process look like?
Absolutely. So we have, there's just a spot on our website. Pretty sure it's smartreading.org/volunteer, I believe. We ask our volunteers to go through a small online training, and also just go through a couple of we ask our volunteers to confirm that they will provide a culturally affirming experience for children in the program. We ask all of our volunteers to undergo a background check. And then once they're kind of in our hopper and our queue, then somebody from our office will call, find out where they live. Traditionally, we try to match volunteers based on local schools. So I live in Portland. I read in an elementary school in my own neighborhood. So that's typically how it happens, although COVID time does kind of add in a few different opportunities to be bridging those this distance mile gaps as well.
Okay, that's absolutely brilliant. And Alana, I just want to say thank you so much for being here today. And for you listening, if you've enjoyed this episode, please press subscribe on YouTube or in your podcast app. That will show the algorithms that this is an important conversation, so more people can learn the importance of reading one-on-one with children.